Good afternoon. I'm Sifu Dave Charlesworth here from KAJUKENBO Napoli here in Naples, Italy. And I've got my guest here with me, Sifu Steve Miller. We're here today. We just want to do a real quick short video here because we made a video a while back here. I think it was some of our backstory, that kind of thing, where we were talking about some of our history in KAJUKENBO and being under Sid Lopez, and which involved a couple other people such as Sifu Beth Baily. And Evidently, in the way that we tend to have our conversations here, this is kind of a freelance kind of thing where we're just kind of talking about things and going by our memories and things like that. And as such, since some of these memories are coming up on 40 years ago for me, and not much far behind there for Sifu Miller. Um, some of our recollections might be a little bit foggy here and there, and I know there were some questions as to how accurate some of the information that we put out was. And with that said, I think Sifu Miller here is going to go ahead and address something that Beth Baily reached out to him with, and just kind of talk about that real quick because we want to kind of clear the air and make sure that we didn't put out anything that was inaccurate, and that we're not slighting anybody in any way. So I got a lot of respect for Beth Baily. I mean, she was a senior student out there when I was a young student, and you know, she helped me a lot in my journey, all the way up to green belt. So with that said, Steve Miller, go ahead and have at it.
Thank you, Sifu Charlesworth. Yeah, Sifu Beth Baily has always been a dear friend to me, and she was a really big part of my growth because after you went into the Navy, it was Sifu Beth and Sihing Brian Fraser that really kind of kept that Newburgh school together. It had moved into the community center through Chehalem Park and Rec, and Sifu Lopez was almost never there. And I only saw Sifu Tim Gagne come down a couple times by that point. And so, really, a lot of the classes, Sifu Beth Baily was the black belt that ran those classes. And she was gracious and generous with her knowledge with me over the years. And then I'll call him Sifu David Funk. He definitely deserves that. And Dave and I got real close. We had an extra night every week that he invited me to train with him at the Newburgh High School track. And then eventually he brought me to a few um, little training sessions with Sifu Beth Baily at her house in Dayton. She was living in Dayton, Oregon at the time. And I only went to two or three of those little get togethers, but it was really good. We had some really good training, and then we would just sit around and talk. And so Beth was more than just a mentor to me. She was a really dear friend to me. And her and Dave were really close. And that losing Dave Funk hurt me a lot because I was in close contact with him and his little brother and his little sister, right? Right about the time, like for a year at least before he passed away. And then definitely the last 6 months. So I'm hoping to be able to have a chance to talk on the phone with Sifu Beth Baily more about that. I know she's still really hurt over that loss of Dave. I am too, but I think maybe she's a little more emotional about it. So whenever you're ready to talk, Sifu Baily, you give me a call. I'm here. Anyway, I just wanted to take a minute, Sifu Charlesworth, and read the email that Sifu Beth Baily sent to us directly. I know you received a copy of this one. Um, she and I emailed back and forth another 5 or 6 times, probably afterward, and had some really great exchanges. And I wanted to thank her here publicly on your platform for her time typing up all the messages that she sent me in the emails. She's always really gracious and generous with her knowledge, and always really open and honest. And I want to give you a big salute, Sifu Beth, just for being awesome. And and then I want to take a minute here to read this, and I'm kind of going to comment a little bit as I read, especially toward the end, because not just on the YouTube platform, we have two episodes, but I had an episode we were trying to start a Spotify station, KAJUTALK, and we may or may not do a separate station called KAJUTALK on YouTube. Sifu Tony was suggesting that. I was just on the horn with him before our Zoom meeting, and he suggested that once again. And I know you and I have already kind of talked a little bit about it, and we might do that. So if we do, we'll let you know here on the KAJUKENBO Napoli YouTube channel. But this correction that we're doing right now on your channel, Dave, I deleted the Spotify episode. It only had 12 listens anyway. So it's gone, Sifu Beth. And this is the only platform where 2 episodes exist prior, where Dave and I are talking about history. And so what I'm about to read is going to clear things up a little bit from a historical, informational perspective, from Sifu Beth Baily's angle, which it seems like she has a really sharp memory, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to go ahead and just read that. I'll take my glasses off so they don't just keep sliding down my nose. So Sifu Beth Baily wrote on September 11th, "Hello, Dave Charlesworth and Steve Miller. There seems to be some misinformation being attached to my name, and I would like you to correct that info on your next podcast, please and thank you. Dave, at the Newburgh School in 1987, you were a new green belt. Green belt rank is held for 1 year. You were a new green belt, and I was moving on to brown, not black. And that was misstated in your podcast, Steve and Dave. That is why we both wore green belts at the same time for a short time." She writes, "I tested for brown belt November 21st, 1987 in Portland. I had injured my back the Thursday night class before the belt test on Saturday." I remember her talking to Sifu Lopez about this later too. So I drove to Portland with ice packs, and I stood with the testing class for the 4 hours it took to complete the test. I could not physically test because of my back injury. Dave, when you had stopped by class sometime after that weekend, we talked about the test. I told you that Sifu Lopez had told me if a student has put in their time and their instructor has seen them execute the material in class, feels that they are deserving of the rank, then performing the belt requirements at the test can be waived as long as the student is present. That belt test was November 21st, 1987. Due to your hand injury, it would have been of no cost to you to audit the Newburgh classes from November until June of 1988, possibly meeting your 1-year timeline belt requirement that begins at green. It has also been misstated on a podcast, one podcast that I know of. She writes, quote, "Sifu Baily is still very loyal to GM Sid Lopez. By the way, she is very loyal to Sifu Sid." That was probably me, whether I mentioned it in the first or the second podcast, Sifu Beth. I just didn't know otherwise because one of the last times you and I bumped into each other, I think I asked you about your affiliation at the time. I might have just changed my affiliation. I was either back with Sifu Tim Gagne or I was still possibly investigating. There was a time where I wanted to go under Grandmaster Bob Suttles. And he thought it was, he almost took me under his wing, but he thought since I already had ties to Gagne through Lopez, it would just be more fitting. But I would have been really happy and really honored to be under Grandmaster Bob Suttles because he is fucking awesome. Pardon my French, but he is fucking awesome. And he's a hell of a cool guy. He's a no bullshit straight shooter. I love him. I love you, Sifu Bob Suttles. I salute you. Anyway, so that was my bad, Sifu Beth. I thought you were still with Sifu Lopez. And then she closes, "This is incorrect. Please correct this info on your podcast. I am no longer a student of Sid Lopez. I removed myself as his student as of October 12th, 2023. Please correct this. I have students that may be very confused by your statements and this misinformation. You have my email if you have questions about me or my history with KAJUKENBO. Thank you much, Sifu B. So, with that all being said, I'll put my glasses back on so I can see the stinking screen. And Sifu Beth, thank you again for everything over the years. I hope to talk to you soon, and I hope you are. I hope you appreciate us reading your email, and I hope that corrects any misinformation and is satisfactory to you. Any closing comments, Sifu Charlesworth?
I pretty, I'd say I'd pretty much agree with that. And it was kind of along my lines of thinking. It was one of those things where I think I had stated basically that I'd caught up to her, which, obviously I did by her statement. Yeah, obviously she was still, much more senior to me than that, kind of thing. And the way I recalled it was essentially I was supposed to be testing with her on that brown belt test. Now that may or may not be the case. I think it was one of those things where I'd said, hey, look, I'm going active duty in June of '88. So, I'm pretty short on time kind of thing. And I think essentially I was kind of accelerating things. I was going to classes up to Portland and things like that as well, trying to get up to speed so that I could do that. But it all doesn't matter because I didn't do it. So,
And then you would have been going from green to brown right alongside Sifu Beth at the time.
yeah, had I made it to that belt test, evidently that might have been the case. Wouldn't that have been something, her with a, bad back and me with a broken hand. Um,
Couple cripples in there.
you know, but it is what it is, and I don't regret it in any way, shape, or form anyway, because well, I shouldn't say that I don't, but obviously it'd be nice to be um, you know, I don't know. It would have been nice to have gotten it done earlier, that would have been nice, but that's okay. It brought me to where I am today. And I think that my background in Kajukembo is a little bit more diverse now as a result of that. So, but with that said, and I share the sentiments that Steve has, with Sifu Baily. She was a great part of my life as a young kid.
Yeah, I
She's
was going
probably,
to say that would have been really cool for you to be able to test for a belt right alongside Sifu Beth because
yeah,
she really was. Um, I was a teenager back then, but I always looked up to her. I still look up to you, Sifu Beth. Um, you've always been very knowledgeable and wise and very well tempered. You're always really mellow and
yeah,
I'll never forget your hammer fist to the groin technique that you would score with in tournaments and sparring. Because Sifu Beth is a pretty short gal, but you got to look out for that hammer fist to the groin because she'll get you.
yeah.
She'll
Well, a lot
get
of
you.
people underestimated her, and that was probably not a good idea on their part.
Not too smart. Not too smart.
No, no, no.
No,
She
she's
she helped
good.
me out a lot in my early years of Kajukembo and really pushed me and helped me to get where I got, kind of thing. And not
Me
only in
too.
Kajukembo, but I also did some time working with her, outside of Kajukembo. Made a little extra money as a kid and whatnot, helping her out with some of the things that she had going on back then too. Um, and I try to be kind of careful too with what I share about other people without actually talking to them about it first. Truth be told, I kind of knew that the thing happened that was with Sid that happened. I knew what was going on with that. Her and I had spoken about it, but I didn't want to, make a big to do about it without, knowing how she felt about sharing that information. Just likewise, like how I don't like to share what's gone on with Sid as well. However, that's in another podcast on Kaji Kimball Live
Well,
anyway. So
well, hang
public.
on. Let's take a minute. I just want to say a few things. I hate to interrupt, but I'm really
Yeah,
good at that.
yeah,
But just for the record, um, I've said this before and I'll say it again. It doesn't matter. It's really sad when someone like Sifu Sid or anyone um, decides to take their own life path down in a different direction that is unhealthy or unproductive. I've made bad choices in my life, and we all pay for that. The Bible says we reap what we sow. I really strongly believe in that. I don't believe in karma. I believe that we reap what we sow, and I believe there's a word called retribution, where if we screw up, God can punish us. If we do something bad against God or against another human being, we can suffer retribution. I think it's very unfortunate. I could say disappointing, as far as being a past student of Sifu Lopez. See, I know a lot of us left Sifu Lopez at different times, and that's not the main point. The point is that a lot of us left him. A lot of us chose to part ways with him for one reason or another, mostly related to the same thing. And it's sad, but it is what it is. I'm not going to elaborate on that. I just also want to bring it full circle by saying I salute you, Sifu Lopez, because I still think you're a hero and a legend in Kajukembo. That's like Sigong. Back in the day, Sijo was called Professor Emperado. Uh, there was Sigong Gabe Vargas and Sifu Sid Lopez, and that was my lineage. And at where Grandmaster Gaylord, great Grandmaster Gaylord, was in there at some point. I think it went Sijo to great Grandmaster Gaylord to Sigung Gabe Vargas to Sifu Sid Lopez. And that was my lineage. I'm proud of that lineage. I don't deny that lineage. I never will. And we all know that there's this dead horse that everybody keeps beating about Sigung Grandmaster Gabe Vargas, whatever you want to call him, Senior Grandmaster Gabe Vargas. If I call him Sifu Gabe or Grandmaster or whatever, it's all out of respect. But, you know, when we talk about people going down a different path with their life, some of us make poor decisions at certain points in life and we reap what we sow. Some of us make really bad choices that hurt other people, whether it's allegedly or whether a person was proven to be a bad apple. That's neither here nor there. What I'm trying to say is no matter what kind of good or bad choices a person makes, I don't believe it can discount from what they have contributed in the past to a person's individual growth or the growth of Kajukembo organization as a whole and the Kajukembo family tree. Because if you look on that Kajukembo family tree, there's a lot of black belts under Sigung Gabe Vargas, folks. And that guy turned out a lot of top fighters and tournament competitors doing forms. Sifu Lopez used to tell us back in the day, Sifu Charlesworth, do both, forms and fighting. I'm sure
Yeah.
that Sigung Vargas did the same and his teacher before him. And we always went home with a bunch of trophies, and we can't take that away from these gentlemen. No matter what kind of bad choices they made after their legendary career, because you know what? For decades in the Pacific Northwest, there were two really prominent names, Sifu Aldecascos and Sifu Sid Lopez. And those are two peas in a pod that, in my opinion, they're legends in Kajukembo. And any of us, I trained with Sifu Al for a little less than a year. It was Sifu Eddie Willis and Sifu John Knutson that were running the classes because I was just a color belt. I was a purple belt. And after I left Lopez, I'm not even sure if I officially tested for my purple belt because all I had was an orange sash. And all I can find is my orange sash certificate. So I might have never even really tested for my purple belt. But I had material up to blue and green and maybe even a couple brown belt techniques because I trained with guys like, number one, Sifu Dave Funk, who was a blue belt, a green belt, and a brown belt when I trained with him. And then he went to PSU. And I remember when I went to visit him, there was a plumbing pipe or a steam pipe for the heating system in his dorm room. And he had his sashes hanging over the pipe it was up by this, top of the ceiling. So they were prominently displayed above his certificates, and he had his sashes in order, from orange all the way up to brown. And I said, when are you going to get a black sash at the end of that, Dave? And he goes, well, after I finish school, but maybe sooner. He said, I got to get it at some point. Eventually, he did because he's on the family tree. It
Yeah.
says David Funk. It says David Funk on that family tree. And once you get on that family tree, folks, you're a branch. Whether you're a little branch or a big branch, I had the honor of, pardon me, Sifu.
A little nub like me.
Well, we're both little nubs. Now, I've had the honor of promoting a handful of people to black belt over the years. Most of them I don't talk to anymore. I still talk to George Laird Dickey the fourth. I don't talk to Jeremiah Kerber. I don't talk to John Liker. I don't talk to Paul Coate. That's all on them. I don't know why. They just don't want to talk to me anymore. I used to call myself the supreme asshole of the universe. I was a pretty big asshole. And I drank a lot of alcohol over the years and said a lot of things I regret. That might be part of it. I don't have a problem owning up to that at all. But that's all on them. They know where to find me if they want to talk to me, whether they do or they don't. I don't care. I can't please all the people all the time. I'm thankful for the time that we had when we were training together. And they were good students. And I hope that they always remember the lessons learned from our days training together. There is one guy on that tree under my name that was supposed to prove up in certain areas with his belt material. He came to me from Taekwondo and he cross trained. He would have been the first and only distance learning student that I ever had. And I haven't named him, but I think I pretty much named about everybody else. So all you got to do is look at that tree to figure out who he is. And I've always said that if I could erase a name off of there, I would erase that guy because he doesn't know enough KAJUKENBO to be on that tree. And that's another thing. None of us got on that tree by not knowing KAJUKENBO. Right, Sifu?
Right. Correct.
Right. So all of us have proven up in some way, shape, or form. And I don't want to get into too much of that because I wanted to keep this episode. Probably it will be the shortest episode we ever record together, Sifu Dave.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to just focus on giving honor and respect to Sifu Beth Baily and clearing the air by reading her email and saying thanks for everything you've done, and I hope to be able to talk to you over the phone if you want to come visit. I told you where I live, so
Yeah.
come on over and visit. I'd love to see you. I love you, Sifu Beth, and thank you once again for everything. You have any
And
closing comments, Sifu?
yeah, I just say that, echo those comments, Beth, appreciate everything you did, when I was a young man growing up and, you know, under your care as a senior student. So that was kind of, your ball of wax a lot of times, especially when Sid didn't make it out. You were the one teaching. You had me help you sometimes and things like that, and that helped me to learn as well, so appreciate everything you did there. And I appreciate the fact that we still communicate and that, that hopefully maybe one of these days, once now that we're trying to get away from the politics here a little bit more here on our show here. We're trying to just go a little bit more to uh, reminiscing about things and sharing the good news about KAJUKENBO. So hopefully we can pretty much stick to that and nobody forces our hands. But I
Amen.
would love to see you come out and, maybe we can do a show with you sometime or something like that if you ever feel adventurous like that. If not, that's cool. Feel free to drop us a line anytime. And, I appreciate everything you did. And I just wanted to make sure to say that. And,
Yeah,
uh,
I would add that would be a lot of fun to have you on the show, Sifu Beth. But if you're camera shy or whatever, you don't have to show your face. I did that for a couple episodes. Um, and if you just want to share through emails and have us read them on your behalf, we'd be honored to do that for you. So just let us know. We're always open to
yeah,
stuff like that, and it's always a
yeah,
joy and an honor to be able to do something like I just did with reading that email. So if you want to share anything, just uh, just ask, and we'd be happy to do that. Like
yeah.
you mentioned, you wrote a bunch of kung fu stories. If you want me to read one, I'd love to do that. I'd be honored. So the door is open, Sifu Beth. The door is open.
But I imagine you probably have some good stories about Sifu Steve here myself. I'm sure you've got a few of them that you could tell. And might make us blush a little bit. Who knows? But in any case, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I'm glad we got to talk about that, and look forward to what the future has to hold. And wish you the best there, Sifu Beth, and keep on training, and best of luck to you. And I hope that we'll talk soon. So thank you very much, sir.
Mahalo. Aloha.
Thank you all for listening. Mahalo.